Hello and welcome. My name is Vanessa Ortali. I am the founder of the Ladies Community and Heart and Mind Talks. Today, I have another awesome interview for you for our online summit, The One. And the theme of this summit is one with self, one with purpose, one with others. And I felt it would be totally inspirational and informational to bring you Ajit Nawalkha, who you may have heard of Mindvalley. He was one of the co-founders of Mindvalley, but his story is so purposeful and impactful. He grew up in Jaipur, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about how he grew up in a house with 23 people and then how he got to where he is today, and give you some critical business tools that he's implemented to build multi-million dollar businesses. He's now an author, a speaker, a coach. And so, hello, Ajit. Thank you so much for being here. And I can't wait to hear more of your story.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Vanessa. I'm excited to be
Yeah.
here.
So let's go back to Jaipur. I've been to Jaipur. I personally
Mhm.
love India. I think the spirituality, and my favorite was call to prayer. Every time call to prayer would go, it would remind me to be in gratitude and be grateful. And I wish we had that here. But bring me back to Jaipur and what your life was like when you were living in this home in India.
So in India, I grew up in the beautiful city of Jaipur. Jaipur is fantastic. It is known as one of the heritage style places to be. So if you think palaces and colors and all of that fun stuff, it's called the Pink City. So some of the buildings are pink in color and so forth. It's a great place to be. I happen to grow up in a very humble side of Jaipur. So I grew up in a household of 23 people. We shared the same space, which, of course, as an introvert myself, was a really tough time for me all of my childhood. I lived in that house until I was like 23 or something. And that's how I grew up. I grew up in a household where we were all kind of jammed together in a very small space, and that kind of inspired me very early on in my life to do something different. Because when you grew up in a particular reality, what happens is, because that's the only reality that you have seen, or that is the only vision that you have of yourself, maybe slightly better, you seem to feel like you don't have possibilities beyond from where you are, or there's just a marginal more possibility for you than where you are. And early on in my life, I was blessed to have individuals who showed up in my life and shared with me how our potential is infinite, and we can dream whatever we want to dream. And if we're choosing to do the work and becoming what we need to become to be that person, we will get whatever we want.
Who were those people that helped you see that possibility?
So it happened over the course of my life. Firstly, was my own challenges generally in life. They kind of inspired me to be able to at least ask a better question or hope for a better question. And then my dad was very inspiring in that sense, and my grandfather was, because they did always inspire me to be able to say, don't accept for what you think or what anybody tells you. Find your answers, and find your through what is now known as first principle thinking, which is actually a really old philosophy. I didn't know about its name until recently, but they were both first principle thinkers, and they inspired me to always question things. And fortunately, then in my school years, when I was about 16 years old, one of my high school teachers actually helped me think something that was way beyond my wildest imagination. So what happened was, I was in, I don't know if you have it in this side of the world, but in India, what would happen is every school would start with what would call the morning assembly, which
Yes,
is, you have it too. Yeah.
we do in
So
Canada. So yeah.
in Canada. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So it's the morning assembly, and all the
Yeah.
kids go and line up in their class sections, and there's some things that happen on stage. So one of the things that would happen on stage is there would be one student who would read the English news, one student would read the Hindi news, and so on and so forth, right? So I was one day, somebody told me, hey, why don't you read the English news? And I'm like, sure, I'll read the English news. I go up there, I read the English news, and I step back. And for the first time, there was a teacher, and she was the vice principal of the school, stepped back and told me, you're really good at this. And I was like, okay, that's kind of, because she was like the vice principal. She was like, I was a very average, below average kid. So, for me, it was a big deal. The vice principal of my school thinks I'm good at anything. Right. So that happened. And then one more time I did, because of that encouragement, I said, one more time I did the morning news. And then she actually invited me to the office and told me the same thing and said, Ajit, you should consider looking at becoming a news anchor. I have friends who are news anchors. I can introduce you to them when you're ready, like after your college or whatever, like
Wow.
finish your education and so forth. And that was fascinating for me. It was really really powerful. And I stayed in touch post my school with this teacher. So she was pivotal in my starting journey and asked me, kind of invited me to ask a better question of myself and see that I'm more powerful than what everybody says that I should be doing. So in India, you either want to be an engineer, doctor, or a chartered accountant because that's what are some supposed to be qualified professions in India. And I wasn't, like, I was trying to be an engineer, but I was not tracking really well. I was kind of like bombing at it. Um, and I was not, I loved studying, but I didn't like exams. So I was like, I don't think I want to do this for another 6, 8, or maybe in my lifetime, because that's how it felt like to be an engineer, is that I was always giving an exam. But I love the study part of it. I love to rationally think about things, right? So that led me to then ask that different question, which happened because of this teacher, and then this teacher introduced me to a student organization called ISAC, which also asked me those questions, and that led me to find a path that is not common. That led me to the organization that you were talking about previously, Mindvalley,
Cool.
because I was doing all these crazy ideas everywhere, and one of the crazy idea was quit your very successful career where I was tracking really well as a media house salesperson, and go
In
do something
India.
in India. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And to ask a different question and say, what if you did this different thing called go join this tiny little company with about 10 employees, with very confusing framework of how they're actually doing anything, and help build them up. And I kind of took on that
How did
responsibility.
you
And
get that opportunity?
so again, one of those things that I learned early on, thanks to these mentors that have showed up in my life at different points, was always be curious and always help somebody else as much as you can. So there was an individual that I had helped tremendously early on in their career, in their schooling life, in their college life, and they happened to be in Malaysia working for another student organization, which was helping this company, Mind Valley, to find people from outside the country because Malaysia was scarce on talent at the time, to come and work for them temporarily. So it wasn't a permanent job; it was more like an internship that you would get. And because of that, he sent when I said, hey, listen, I have this startup that is not doing so well because we were trying to build a social network, and Facebook just came about at the same time, and we were way behind technologically or vision wise from the company. And so he was like, hey, listen, if you want to do something that kind of is not in a big corporation, but something that will get you to learn this internet thing, because that was my drive at the time, to just learn how to make internet work, because I just bombed my internet venture. So I was like, it must be that I don't know enough about it. He said this will be a good organization. The founders come from the same organization I was a part of. This is Vision, and there was another co-founder at the time called ISEC, the student organization I was a part of. He's like, hey, they come from the same organization, same values. They're trying to do good work. So maybe this will be a good match for you. And that's how I got introduced to Mind Valley.
Neat. What are some of your biggest takeaways that you learned from growing Mind Valley?
Wow, that would be many. That would require a whole
Yeah.
book. But I think one of the
Are you
greatest
writing
lessons.
it?
I've written many. If you
Yeah.
compile them, you'll find a lot of lessons from Mind
Yeah.
Valley as well. But if I was to say, so there are two, three big lessons that I would like to, if that's okay. Can I
Yeah,
go
of
into two,
course.
three of them? Yeah.
I
So,
can't wait.
so the first lesson is that never, and this is more like a mindset thing that you may want to ask yourself, is to always say there is no limitation to anything that you are doing. So one of the greatest things that I've found is, if you look at a business that is very successful, most of the time you will see it's the entrepreneur's mindset or the entrepreneur's way of looking at things that is really successful. And the reason is because there is, everybody has a construct of reality that comes from the understanding of other businesses. So say for example, if Vanessa has a business, most likely most of the time you would be looking outside of many other businesses that you may resonate with and say, my business may have ideas from this business. Well, the problem is that's the wrong way of thinking about business. Because when you're looking at somebody else and you're trying to replicate their success, you've just created a copy of something that is already successful, and copies never become successful. Copies are just copies. They will find some success and some traction, but if you're looking for outrageous success, if you're intending to build $100 million company, $1 billion enterprise, you can't be a copy. Because a copy doesn't work in that scenario. There's no unique proposition. You're not creating unique advantage. You're not using your unique advantage as well, because everybody is uniquely qualified and can create a unique advantage irrespective of the market that they want to play in. So the first lesson that I would say is everything is possible, but don't look at the world outside to find what you can do, but just for inspiration. So for inspiration, it's okay, but don't copy people. Don't copy somebody else, which is why anytime somebody who says, oh, I saw this funnel somewhere, or I saw this person doing this, maybe I should do the same thing. I go, no, maybe you shouldn't be doing the same thing. Because if that person is doing it, there could be many reasons why they do it. It could be that it is actually they're super true and honest to themselves, is why it works, because it's so effortless for them to be able to do what they're doing, because they don't even, that's just them. Like, it's just honest to them, right? So first thing is be honest, and be very present to who you are, and have that awareness of saying, I can go to whatever lengths and depths of anything that I want to get to. I just have to stay growth minded and self-aware about what's my strength and what's my weakness, and what is it that I'm really good at, and what I'm not so good at. So that's the first thing. The second thing would be think team, and think long-term team. Don't think. One of the things that I've found is most of the entrepreneurs that are doing anything under 5 million in revenue, especially if they are in the space of education or training or even apps, they very rarely focus on the team that would stay with them for a lifetime, because they don't approach their business as a business of a lifetime. They approach their business as, I will pay the bills this month or this year, or I will get to this small little goal that I've always imagined to be. And what happens when you have such goals and when you have such short term visions is that every person becomes dispensable on your team, right? And because every person becomes dispensable, you never really fully commit, and they never really fully commit to say, I am bought into your vision. I would love to do this with you, right? And as much as people would like to believe that the business is built by some genius, it is completely untrue. Businesses are not built by geniuses. I mean, there are genius minds behind it, but there are many of them. So there is no one person that is creating a successful enterprise. If it's a successful enterprise, there are probably a big set of people that have contributed tremendously and continue to contribute tremendously every single day for years at a time, right? It's a group thing, which is why most of the time when we say it's a company, and it represents something as a company, it is a representation of a thought, a pile of thoughts, a mix of thoughts. It's not a representation of one founder or one individual's thinking. It's a group think that comes out. So second, I would say, is one of the biggest lessons is always think team, and always think long-term team,
Can
not
I ask you a
immediate.
question about the team? I know
Absolutely.
so many people start their business and it's just them, and they don't necessarily have the money to hire a team.
Mhm.
What are the first steps you would recommend to someone in building that team if they don't have budget to pay someone?
So, firstly, is in today's time, people would actually do more meaningful work for less money than less meaningful work for more money. At least you'll find a big segment of creative, powerful individuals doing it. It's not everybody, of course, but there's a big segment of people who actually can be great and make a lot more money just working for an enterprise, but they choose not to because it drains the heck out of them, right? So, firstly, know that if you commit to yourself for a longer term, you'll find people who will commit to you to commit to you for a long term. Now, you may not be able to find the greatest experts. You may not be able to find senior professionals, because the reason why they need the money is not because they're not passionate about your vision, is because they have families, right? So they can't just quit on their family and say, fine, I'll not get paid for 2 years. That's just not how it's going to work. You will, what the kind of people that you're going to find are younger people who are passionate, who would do it for an experience, who would do because what you're talking about is resonant to them. They would do it because you directly may have impacted them, or you can go out and reach out and actually make an impact and then say, would you join my movement? And I may not be able to pay you for the first 6 months, but as soon as the business gets traction, I'm willing to commit to a greater number, and we'll figure out how that would work. A lot of my team members that have stuck around for a long time, be Mindvalley, be Ever Coach, be our other companies like Global Green Institute, or other companies that we have invested in, you will find that they started at really nominal rates or no salary at all, right? But what we did is, because they were coming in and they knew they only get paid when the company starts to make money. There is a motivation that comes with that, right? Or they get paid something decent when the company makes money. What happens is that you find these people to actually rally behind you and pick you up when you're down, right? Because they are now dependent on you, right? It's not an easy sell when you are a startup, but anything that is new is a hard sell. Even your product is a hard sell. You are a hard sell. Everything is a difficult selling proposition for somebody who's buying, because they don't see the track record, they don't see any of those things, right? Which means when you're starting the first grind, yes, it'll be a lot about you. Yes, it'll be a little bit more hard work than usual, or in time that'll happen because then the team comes in and chips in. But all those things, yes, in the starting will be hard, which also means a lot of times, and again, entrepreneurs confuse this a lot, right? You have to write down what is the most critical item that you have to do, and you will see you actually don't have to do a lot of things. People think they have to work really hard to start a company. They have to think really hard to start a company, for sure. But actual work-wise, technology is so superior now. The resources that you can hire globally are so cheap now that actually you don't have to work really hard. You have to think really hard to keep your differentiation and to chip away everything that doesn't make you you, and actually covers you up and gives you this other fearful and scared being that is trying to start a company. The moment you take all those chips away and you take away all those layers away, and you are the powerful individual that you are inside, the curious one that you were as a kid, you will go in with a very different attitude. And because you go in with that powerful attitude, you'll see that you don't need as much you think you need. And we tend to think all of that we need is, again, for the same dialogue that I started this conversation with, is we listen to everybody and then we try to do everything. Anybody who became successful, I've never met a person who said, I did everything all the time on day one. They didn't. They started with one area or two areas. They mastered it. Then they went to the next one when they could have somebody do the area that they already mastered, right? And then the next, and then the next, and then the next. And they stayed hungry is why they lasted everybody else. They never settled to say, all right, now I'm done, or I've had my safe cushion to sit on. They stayed hungry and they kept progressing. And that's why they continued to stay successful and become more and more successful every day.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. One of my mentors, she says sometimes you just have to let things bleed because you can't do everything at once. So you have to just be okay with not being good at certain things, even though you know better, but you just can't do everything at once. Yeah. So what's the
Absolutely,
third
you can't.
lesson? Yeah. What is the third lesson from Mindvalley?
If I have to give you a third lesson, I'm trying to think which one to prioritize. There are
Yeah.
many lessons, like I said. I was like, which one would be the third
Well, the
one?
first two were
Um,
great. Team and knowing your truth.
yeah.
Mhm.
So the third one, if I had to pick one and go with it, is create something different. And by create something different, we already talked about how you are different as an individual.
Mhm.
But what you are creating outside in the world, if you are not taking any risk related to that, if it looks same, if it looks like, so for example, let me give you an example because that may be able to explain better what I'm trying to say here. Is when when we built Mindvalley or any of our companies, if you look at structure of any of our company, you would see that what we do pricing wise, what we do design wise, what we do for technology, what we do for how we interact with our clients is, if not at least 50% different than anybody else in the marketplace. Sometimes we are a completely different ecosystem because we operate so differently, right? So, for example, if I was to ask, hey, do you know another company like Mindvalley or EverCoach? You'll most likely go, maybe one more company that may come similar to these two companies, but most likely nothing will come top of your mind, right? Which are like that, right? And the reason is very simple, because that is how we designed it to be. We asked the question of, what is a market that is already busy? So personal growth is a really busy market. Coaching, training, very busy as a market. There's so many people that operate in this space. So we say, okay, this market is already busy, but are they really serving the audience in a way where a unique set of individuals may say, yes, there are many options, but nothing beats the option of these guys, right? We call it carving a blue ocean in a red ocean, right?
Mhm.
So, do you think your audience will be aware of what blue ocean strategy is, or should I do a one step back
No,
and
do a
explain?
little, yeah,
Okay.
explain a little bit more.
Cool. So I think it was 2000 something, 2008 or something. I think there's a book that came out called Blue Ocean Strategy. Blue Ocean Strategy was written by some San Francisco people. I don't remember the names right now. But basically, the premise of the strategy was don't go to a red ocean, which is a ocean that's full of competition. Go to a blue ocean because it's easier to catch fish there. Because the blue ocean, nobody else is competing with you, nobody else is fishing there. You go there, you fish there, you'll get clients more easily. And a red ocean means there are too many fish there, and hence everybody's there and everybody's fishing at the same pot. But because everybody's trying to fish at the same pot, you have too many competitors, and hence fish are not going to get caught, and hence your business will not survive. So that's the difference between a red and a blue ocean, right? So, like a market like um, I'm trying to think of a blue ocean market that comes to my mind. Uh, a market for, say, a very unique herb that nobody has ever tested and has any proof that it works, maybe a blue ocean because, well, nobody's really talking about it and so forth. But a red ocean will be, say, personal growth. There's
Yeah.
so many authors, so many speakers, so many trainers, so many seminars, so many events, so many companies, right? Or a coaching space. There's so many, or business training, which is our Global Good Institute company. So many business trainers, right? So many business coaches, so many business consultants, right? And because there's so many, people would go, oh, that's a very competitive market. There is no way somebody would survive it. Don't enter that market. That's a red ocean. We asked a different question. We said, yes, it's a red ocean, but do you think everybody in that ocean is satisfied with what's available in the market? They are probably not. And that you can see if you actually observe the trends, right? If you look at people and the people who are playing the field, you'll go, oh, there's definitely audiences that would not resonate with that, not resonate with that, not resonate with that. Like, for example, most of the personal growth trainers and program sellers are very hard sellers. They
Hmm.
don't lead with content, they lead with sale, and that's how they're taught, and they think that's the right way to do it, and so on and so forth. And good on them for believing what they want to believe. But we believe different things. We said, no, we don't believe you need to do that. We believe that a business is built for decades and centuries at a time. And if you're building a business like that, we can't lead with saying, buy now, right? We have to lead by saying, here is something of value. See if you like what you see. And maybe if you're ready, if it feels right, you can buy something from us, right? Completely change the way we approach business than anybody else does, right? That's why Mindvalley or EverCoach looks really different. Even Global Good Institute looks really different because it has nothing like in the market that does that or has a positioning settled like that. So, and you can see that if you just looked at the website. If you did nothing else but looked at a website, you'll be like, I have never seen somebody craft a beautiful sales page like this one,
Hmm.
and that always keeps getting upgraded. I could even say this is as good a sales page if Apple was to design the sales page. Let's say Apple in Steve Jobs' time had to design the sales page, they would design something like this, right? And that is the kind of difference that we're talking about. So think how you are the blue ocean in a very red ocean. What is it that makes it so different that you can uniquely craft your positioning into that marketplace without having to say, oh, it will not be successful, right? Because most
Hmm.
people just go, oh, it will not be successful because it's such a busy market. There's no way you can win it, right? But you actually can, because when it's a red ocean, it's actually most of the time it's because everybody is taking their harpoons and killing on the fish instead of catching them, because they're just making people disappointed with everything that they're doing. Same as for, say, training space in business, right? People have just been
Yeah.
disappointed for years now because it's a burn and turn for most of the people, because that's what they've been taught by the internet marketers and so forth. They're not playing the 10-year game. They're playing the how do I make more money this month game. And when you play
Hmm.
that game, you never win. Or you win, but you win on the short term, right?
Yeah.
So that was our way of looking at business. So play for the long term and carve your blue ocean in a red ocean, and that's how you win big.
Yeah, I love those reflection questions. I'm going to do some journaling tonight too, because I think it's, and it, as things continue to evolve, I think it's healthy to always be asking yourself those questions and keeping yourself in check, because it's so easy when we're bombarded on social media by what everyone else is doing to think, oh, should I do that? Should I do that? And it's something that I'm so passionate about, even when I'm coaching people one on one or in groups, is you need to tune into you, like what's right for you, because copying and following all of what everyone else is doing will only get you so far.
There's an analogy that I use to explain people when they think somebody is the god of something, like, and that
Mhm.
includes me. Like, if anybody who's listening goes, no, 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 you have never seen blank. They are just amazing, right? Is they could be amazing, nothing wrong with being amazing, but if you're chasing what they're doing, what happens is it's the problem of competition, right? When you're competing with someone, you're always competing with that person, which means you have predefined the ceiling of your success by
Hmm.
your competition. Now, you don't know if the competition is actually bent towards creating a new future or whatever. They can say whatever they want, but you don't know them really, right? Nobody really knows anybody else because there's so many layers to us as human beings, right? So if you're competing, you're always behind this person because you're going, oh, how can I do what they are doing, right? So you will always be less successful than this person. And if this person has done something wrong, because let's say their mind is not really in place, something happens in life and they come crashing down, you come crashing down, right? Because you made this person the hero and you've said, this is the competition that I'll chase. Where else, if you say, I'll look at this competition, but I'm creating my own life, your ceiling is unlimited. You can keep going till as far as you want to go. So getting inspired is okay, but to copy, but to chase, but to compete is always going to limit how far you can go because you'll always be behind the person that you're chasing. So that's something to reflect on as well.
Yeah. And it's so in line with the theme of this summit because it's one with self first so that you
Mhm.
can connect with your purpose and you can connect with others. How did you now transition into your other businesses that you're working with after Mindvalley?
So I am somebody who is have always been very curious about variety in my life. So I love solving problems. I love looking at completely different set of problems. I love looking at situations that seem like shouldn't work out, when it's the impossible in a way. I'm like, I love being in those setups because it feels like it's exciting for me. It's one of my core values is intelligence. And it really inspires me to be able to be in a situation where it's a difficult problem to solve, right? And so I would approach any situation like that. I would go in and I would go, let me see if I can solve this challenge, blah blah blah, right? And because of that, I've always had multiple companies, so it's never
Mm,
been a time where I didn't have at least two or three companies at the same time operating and doing really well for themselves. But the reason why I do them is because I love variety. I love intelligent things. I love solving problems. Now, what happened was there was a time in my life where I was in a relationship that came crashing down. I had some health challenges. I had a little bit of I had too many things happening in life except my work that were not working. So my
mm,
work was amazing always. I was always inspired, and Mind Valley is a great place to work. It's a fun place to work, and it's good meaningful work. So I loved it, right? So because of that, I didn't have a challenge at work, but I had challenge everywhere else in life, and I'd realized that there was probably because I had let everything else go because I am so passionate as work, and I never thought about integrating work as life. It was always work. I'm going to
mm,
work. I'm doing like 10, 12 hours a day, or I am doing life, which was then on the remaining time that I have. So I've never really had before a chance to say, what if it was all together? What if I did things only when I had I wanted to do things, that type of thing. So that kind of took me to a piece of saying, maybe instead of being a part of Mind Valley in the capacity of CEO of the company, what I should do is I should just start my other companies because that gives me the freedom of time, right? And that got me to start EverCoach firstly, which was one of my anyways great passions because I wanted to do something for the coaching community because, like I mentioned before, they've had great impact in my life. So I felt like that was great give back. At the same point in
mhm,
time, again, it was one of those red ocean blue ocean things that I talked about. Is there's nobody who actually thinks about how do I make better coaches. Everybody's asking the question, how can I make them make money, which is the easiest part. If you are a good coach, most of the people are
mhm,
just not really good coaches and not good trainers, is why they don't make any money. But they don't see it that way because they don't understand how business really works, right? Business really works because your product works, not because business works. Business doesn't really work without
mhm,
a good product. If the product's crap, it's going to lose market very very quickly, and nobody's going to refer you. So anyway, so that got me to start EverCoach. And while I was doing EverCoach, I realized there's one dimension that is still missing in the space of wellness-based entrepreneurs, is that they get, again, really bad advice from people who have made one thing work, right? So one of the challenges is most of the consultants and trainers out in the space are people who have made one thing work. Like there will be course creators who will say, I've made a course about making courses
mhm,
and that has become really successful. So let me tell you how to make a course about something else. it's not true. It doesn't work that way, right? It doesn't work. It works for some, but it doesn't work for
Mm-hmm.
everybody. And so there's a lot more burn and turn, as we call it, or as I call it in the industry, because you're basically they're saying, I will collect the money from this person. They may or may not be successful ever, but who cares, right? So that was a trend that I was seeing, and I was like, that's not fair, that's not right. It is losing me a lot more people who can create greater change in the world because they get frustrated with the industry. And so we gave birth to Global Good Institute from that by saying, what can we create that would actually help people? Like, how can we actually help people over an extended period of time? Because when it's a short term thing, it is, of course, I
Mm-hmm.
can only do a generalized thing. I cannot actually customize it for the person that's listening, which got us started in Global Good Institute because we saw a real problem. Again, a red ocean, blue ocean type of thing. It's there are a
Mm-hmm.
lot of consultants, but nobody does what we do, which is customize consulting to the person that is actually creating it, and work with them for a period of 1 to 2 to 3 years to actually get them to the point where they go, yes, this was my dream and this is where I wanted to be. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
that's Global Good Institute. Then on the side, we also realized there's a big problem with technology because, again, people lose motivation when it comes to actually working on things that have anything to do with website or technical setup. So we set up a unit or a company called Epic Businesses, which is our technical arm, which kind of helps people build technology. So I started doing all these companies because of my own personal joy, and we are still doing more. So this is just
Mm-hmm.
the three that I'm mentioning right now, but there are many other companies that are in the horizon that we're working with to either buy them out or to invest in them or to create from scratch.
Neat. So, what is the difference between the startup phase and then building a multi-million dollar industry? How do you think you were able to scale and grow all of those companies that you're working with?
It's I won't be able to comment how I'm able to do
Mm-hmm.
it because
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a good question. I should ask myself how am I able to do it. But the reason why these companies come to us is actually philosophically, it is the same approach.
Yeah.
Philosophically, when you create a startup, it is about the product. People don't ask that question, which is unfortunate. But especially if you're in any type of training or well-being industry, people don't ask the product question hard enough, and they just go, let's quickly create something instead of saying let's create something that is of value, right? If you solve the product problem, you'll solve the marketing problem, because product is the marketing in many ways,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't have to pitch something different if my product is clear enough. People will buy just because they understand what's the value that they get. They're not buying because of your charisma or brand or whatever that is. They're buying because they get a result out of you. The charisma helps getting attention, but that's pretty much where the buck stops. The purchase is still because of the value that you add, right? So in a startup, the key is create a great product. People don't do that, which is why they don't create great marketing. And because they don't create great marketing, they don't attract the right person. The difference between a startup and a scaling a multi-million dollar company is the product is already tested in a multi-million dollar company, right? So if I'm working with a client that does a million, 2 million, 3 million in revenue, trying to get to 10, 20 million, most of the time I don't have to worry about the product because the product
Mm-hmm.
is already sorted as how they got to a million, 2 million. Otherwise, their product will crash and their numbers won't look good enough for them to be able to afford me, for example,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But once they have got that traction, what happens is now I don't have to worry about the product that much. Now I have to worry about the team, the branding, the
Yeah.
marketing, the messaging, and how to really scale all of those elements in the modern world without compromising the product, right? So
Yeah.
it's the same elements that you're working on in either of the scenarios. You're still working on product, the marketing, the messaging, the branding, the team. It's just that team is probably the last priority in a startup, but it's the first priority in a company that has already hit at least million to 2 million.
Yeah.
Because
Very
anyways,
cool.
anything before that, they probably won't hire me personally,
Yeah.
because it's just the fees is too exorbitant
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
companies smaller than that.
I love hearing your thought process. I feel like I could talk to you forever and ask you a million questions. This is really cool. Do you feel like you're living
Thank
your
you.
purpose?
I think I am. I feel very blessed to be in the situation that I'm in, because if I don't feel aligned, if I don't feel joy in something,
Mm,
I found the comfort in myself to be able to say no. So
yeah.
I can go, no, I'm not going to do it. It doesn't feel right to me. I'm not going to do it, right?
Yeah.
And because of that, I feel that I get to do what I want to do, which is part of my purpose. My core values are service and love, which I like to operate from every single day in every time I show up, in any way I show up, I try to operate from a place of how can I add value to somebody else, and express my love in that way or in any other way that's possible, and also operate from that place. So that's really what I mean to do every day. That which is the purpose of my life, is to be able to contribute
Hmm.
to humanity, and I feel like I'm able to do that every day. Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you find that being an introvert, it's difficult managing these different businesses and then connecting back to self? Or what are some things that you put in place to maintain your connection to self as you're doing so many initiatives?
I don't think introversion extroversion has anything to do with it.
Okay.
It is merely your personality type and how you understand your personality type. So, for
Mhm.
example, because I'm an introvert, and it will probably only resonate with introverts what I'm about to say, but because I'm an introvert, I've set up my teams in a way where there are literally zero team members in my physical setting. They're all in the virtual world. They, even if they live in the same city as me, I don't invite them to come to the office every day. Or even if I have a big office, I'm not asking them, hey, come over and you can sit and work from here, because I'm an
Mhm.
introvert. I don't want to interact with everyone. I invite them, I interact with them through calls, through Zoom platforms and so forth, but I don't need the energy all the time, because this is my time of me going within me, right? So I set up my life in a way where it makes sense for my energy to always feel fueled, right?
Mhm.
If I was an extrovert, I would just have all my team members here, right? So it doesn't really change how many businesses you run. You just run them differently, and
Yeah.
it doesn't change how you are as a leader as well. As an extrovert or as an introvert, your job's the same, and you can achieve both of them by staying aligned and knowing how you operate,
Mhm.
and actually informing your team how you operate.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the big things that happens is we tend to, as people, not share our strengths. We are very excited to share our strengths, sorry, but we are not comfortable sharing what's not going well for you, or what is your weakness, or what is your strong weakness even, which is things that you are maybe really good at but you don't want to do, or you have no motivation to do it. If you are aware of all these things and you communicate it very straightforward and honestly to your team, you'll find most of your team members will be very grateful and actually help you not do things that you don't want to do. They
Yeah.
may take time because sometimes they are not qualified for it and we need to get somebody and so on and so forth. But 85-90% of the time, it'll be off your plate in no time.
Right.
So I'm really good at building teams for sure, and that allows me to be able to build many businesses without much of a challenge. I mean, it's still a challenge, of course, but it's not. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't keep me awake in the night. It's not that kind of challenge. It
Yeah.
is challenge. There are situations and areas that are challenging, which intellectually stimulate me, which is why I like it. But it's not a worry per se.
Right. And so it's just knowing very clearly who you are and how you work best so that you can create that environment around you.
Absolutely. You
Yeah.
absolutely. I don't think any good entrepreneur doesn't invest the time in really knowing themselves. And
Yeah.
it's a lifelong journey. Like you'll keep discovering more of you, which is why we are very interesting as human beings. Generally, all of us are. And I think, but that's a critical first step. If there is lack of self awareness, it'll be hard for you to know how to run your company for sure.
Mhm. What are you surprised with about yourself as because you've obviously spent so much time invested in yourself. What
Hmm.
do you do that still surprises you on a daily basis that you're like, oh, I didn't realize I was like that? Or what do you continue to learn about yourself as you dive deeper into that?
There's new things all the time, but
Hmm.
if you pick one, I've just the latest one that I think I've discovered is how fearless I can be even when I'm kind of scared. It's some things that in the business that I've done where I'm like I'm not sure, this looks very uncomfortable what I'm about to do, but I still did it anyways, and it was great for the business eventually. But it was staying fearless in the face of things that are scary. I think that was that much fearlessness. I feel that's new. Like I wasn't expecting myself to be able to do
Hmm.
that. Also, the same thing, but in connection of people and being able to communicate certain things, which are difficult conversations to have, but to
Yeah.
still have it, even if you're putting yourself into a situation where you don't know if the other person or how the other person's going to respond to it.
Yeah. Do you have a daily practice to connect to love and service and to continue to dive deeper within you?
I used to have a daily one, but I have a new
Hmm.
baby at home, so my practice
Oh,
is gone for a toss. I would not
yeah.
lie. It is definitely not as daily as I would like it to be.
Hmm.
But I did have a daily practice, and now I
Yeah.
do that as and when I can. But I'm being kind to myself to know
Yeah.
it's the new child. If he wakes up at 5 a.m., I can't say, all right, hold off. I need to meditate for 20 minutes before I talk to you.
Yeah.
It's a new
Yeah.
baby, and me and my wife take turns to
Yeah.
not have either of us feel overwhelmed and exhausted. And he's only 15 months, so
Yeah.
maybe in a year or so I will have my practices back. But right now they're with
Yeah, I think that's so fair because it's important to be kind to yourself and know the ebbs and flows of life and go along with it because you can't do everything all the time, which goes back to your first point that you were talking about when we were talking about your business is you just can't do everything. So, yeah, and I know
me.
you are super busy. So, I really am so grateful for you taking the time to be with us today and to chat with me. I feel so blessed to have this conversation with you, and I really appreciate it. So, thank you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you
Where
so much, Vanessa.
yeah, where can people find you and connect with you and your businesses?
Well, the name of the business is EverCoach. So you can go to evercoach.com, or you could go to EverCoach Facebook page, or on Instagram, you can connect directly with me. I'm Ajit Nawalkha, which is probably typed somewhere. So you can search
Yeah,
that on
I'll
Instagram and
spell
you'll
it out
find it.
loud in case you're just listening. So his name is spelled Ajit and his last name is Nawalkha.
Yeah.
There you go.
And the
Yeah.
second company that you may be curious about is Global Grid Institute. It is,
Mhm.
as it says, globalgridinstitute.com. And yeah, you can find us in any of those platforms. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for giving us your
Yes.
wisdom, and everything that you have created is truly inspirational and changing a lot of people. So thank you, Ajit.
Thank you so much, Vanessa.
Yeah, thank you for listening. Have a wonderful day. And we hope that you take some of those principles of team and self into your business and grow what is true to you and in alignment with your values. Sending you so much love. Bye for now.